is and what's happening today with that. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Julie Garlikov. Did I say that right? CMO of Shackley, and also Cassandra McClure. She's an influencer and also a big beauty makeup artist, and now also you're launching your own brand as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first start actually with both of you to really kick off your brief, introduce yourself, and what you're up to. I mean, beyond the title. And how you got here. So a little bit of your background, Julie, and then we'll go to Cassandra. So, and then what we'll do is after that, we'll spend about 20 minutes. We'll do a bit of conversation, Q&A, and then I want to open it up to everyone else here in the auditorium, and we can take your Q&A and we can have a very nice conversation about what influencer marketing is all about. So with that, Julie?
Great, well, thank you guys for having me. I'm not Belgian or European, but I do have a box of very delicious Belgian chocolates sitting on my counter. So maybe that qualifies me to be in this space, but I'm very pleased and delighted to be invited and to be in such great company. So a little bit about me. I come from a classically trained sort of marketing background. I've come up through brand management. I started in sales at Procter & Gamble in health and beauty products, and then I moved over after I got my MBA to the marketing side, and I worked at the big guys like Johnson & Johnson and PepsiCo for a number of years, and then about 11 years ago decided I really wanted to take all that experience and go smaller and make more impact and be able to feel more contribution for my work and to kind of train up the next generation of leaders. And I moved up here with my husband and our kids to the Bay Area and went to work at a company called Tarani, which is a family-owned third-generation San Franciscan business that makes syrups for your coffee. And I actually started doing influencers before anyone had ever heard of influencers when I was at Tarani, so I can tell you guys a little bit about that. And so I've worked in beverages and I've worked in skincare, and I've used influencers for about 9 years, actually. So after Tarani, I went to a startup in skincare and pioneered a penetration technology in a mask and used influencers really significantly in our kind of test market plan and to really start to build that brand, which ultimately the investors decided to sell. And then I had the privilege to come to Rodan & Fields for the last 3.5 years and really help grow and scale the company from about $600 million to $1.5 billion and really launch a whole slew of products and categories and build out the marketing and social media teams, and just was on a complete rocket ship. And I can share a little bit of how we thought about influencers and how we used our consultants to actually be our influencers. And so now I've come over to Shackley, which is probably a brand you haven't heard of, like maybe you might have heard of Rodan & Fields, because my goal there is to take a brand that's been around since 1956 and make it relevant and modern and hip and teach them all the tricks and tips of social media and how to market in today's world, because the products are amazing and they've been backed by science forever, and the founding doctor just was really ahead of the curve and kind of going clean and green and focusing on inside-outside kind of health. But the field and salespeople who are selling it are legacy salespeople, and they don't know all the modern marketing of today. So that's what I'm up to. And thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Cassandra?
Hi, you guys. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Cassandra McClure. I'm definitely 97% European, according to 23andMe. So, McClure is Irish. And I brought you chocolate. I don't know if it's Belgian. But I am polar opposites. I started as a makeup artist. I did a lot of modeling and acting first, then got into makeup because I had my makeup done so much. Moved all around the world. I was the first stylist with the PGA. But I was definitely on MySpace when I was in junior high. And then I became a Facebook and Instagram influencer because of being a makeup artist that brands would send me products. And I did stuff with Maybelline and all kinds of different things. And then I worked with different agencies all over in Dubai and in London. And I knew I wanted to always be an entrepreneur, so I always had my own mobile salon as a destination artist and a celebrity artist. And then in March, I launched Lash Finder, which is my tool, my eyelash tool, a patent pending tool that we designed to be the fastest, quickest, and easiest way to apply false lashes because I saw a need in the market for something that wasn't really there. And so that's going very well. And I'm also an influencer with Beauty Counter. I am a senior manager with them. And so it's very funny with the consultants, because it is. If you're a consultant, you're an influencer for that company. So I've taken that route with Clean Beauty. And I also noticed that there really wasn't, I had a lot of health issues a couple years back. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was going in and out of Stanford. I was paying thousands of dollars, even though I had the best insurance. And I couldn't breathe, I couldn't sleep, and found out it was fragrance in my home, in my beauty products, everything that I was literally poisoning myself. So I went clean, and I started looking at podcasts for, inspiration on other clean journeys, and I found that there wasn't one, so I launched that in November, and then I became a bigger influencer, because now I'm talking to people in every country, all over the world, not just on Instagram and Facebook lives and all of that, and that has taken me in a whole new direction, and now I'm a clean and green beauty influencer. So it's been pretty amazing, and so I guess that's kind of
that's
a great
intro. Thank you both. So just to kick off the conversation, I want to start with the word. What is influencer, Julie? Like, is it someone who writes a review? Is it someone who makes a video? Or as a marketer, what comes to your mind, and who is in it? Or is it everyone?
Well, it's funny because I feel like influencers got its own meaning today in the last 3 to 5 years than it did before. But historically, I think of an influencer as someone who was always in your social network, or was they used to say maven, or somebody who was connected, or that's your go-to person that knew every restaurant or who you would go to. And I think it's the same thing today. It's all digital and social, right? So we're looking, instead of just looking at, I go have dinner with my girlfriends and I want to hear who is in the know on the latest thing to read or the latest thing to listen to or whatever it is. I'm going and consuming social media, and I'm following people, and they become like my actual friends. And so I think of today as influencers are just people's content and inspiration that I want to read and follow. And because I like what they have to say in the world, I actually listen to their point of view, and they influence my purchases and my decisions and my thinking just because I like their position in the world or what they're sharing.
Got it. So it's pretty much everyone really who's talking about the product and the brand. And
I think it's anyone that's credible to you.
Correct.
I mean, I think the thing is, an influencer has to have a relationship with that individual. You're not an influencer to the entire world. You're an influencer to the audience of people who respond or are connected to you and engage with you.
Got it. And then Cassandra, there's a big discussion in the influencer world. Are you a celebrity influencer, macro influencer, micro influencer? So how do you define yourself? I mean, I think you define yourself by the word you just mentioned, vertical. You're a clean beauty influencer. So I'm curious, what is your perspective on who you are as an influencer? What kind of influencer are you?
Yeah, micro is 100,000 and below, and then macro is above, and then there are celebrities. So Kim Kardashian would be one, right?
Right.
So I'm on the lower. I'm a macro. I would be considered.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, Julie, what was your first influencer campaign that you ever ran, and you briefly touched upon it? And so share with us your story.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I'm always looking for new ideas and inspiration, and I was at a marketing conference with an organization I love, CMO Club, and someone was sitting next to me at lunch, and we got in this whole conversation about her business, and the business was called She Speaks, and they were out of New York, so this is 8 or 9 years ago, and she was telling me all about how they were creating a network of women, mostly moms, but a lot of different women who were connected, and they were basically an early network of influencers. And so I thought, okay, let's learn more about this. We brought them into our office, we learned all the details, tried to figure out how would this campaign work, and we essentially said, hey, let's go try it. No one's doing this yet. This could be a great way. We needed to get our product in people's hands, and it's not easy to physically sample a large bottle. At the time, this was a 750 ml kind of wine bottle size, and little smaller bottles, and they were glass, and we wanted people to have a conversation at the holidays about pumpkin spice, peppermint bark, really get into that, all your fall favorites and your holiday favorites, and it's what better way to get people talking than to have these folks open up the box. So we did early unboxings, we did a campaign, they tried the flavors, they made recipes, we gave them ideas and inspiration, but they just took it like crazy. And then we gave coupon codes and drove people to retail, and we got really, really strong results. I mean, it was let's go spend $75,000 and let's see what happens. And we had tons of content that we were able to repost, and it was early days, so no one was talking about influencers as a big marketing vehicle. It was more, we knew that we would build brand love from having engagement with Uber fans and people who had touched and felt the product. And we felt it was more important to do that than it was to do like mass advertising. And we wanted like small groups of people to connect with our brand. And from that, we knew we could like build the brand out. And so that's what we did.
What year was this?
This, oh gosh, I was trying to think what year it was.
Pre-social media?
No, we were on social, but I'm trying to think if it was about 2003.
And how did you
2002?
How did you go about selecting the influencers, and who did you decide to work with?
So they had a network of people. We gave them kind of our criteria of who bought from our brand. And of course, they're used to working with marketers, right? Or they were starting to. They're starting to work with some of the big CPG firms. And then they culled through and gave us a huge group of people to, they do a lot of the vetting for you, but you still have to go through and check all that content. And there was not a tool like yours that was trolling to tell us like whether those folks were good or bad or what they were posting. So we just literally went through and looked at all their content and decided who we thought would be a good fit.
Got it. And this is sort of pre-smartphones as well.
Yeah, it was 2012, I shouldn't say.
Oh,
yeah,
2012. So smartphones had just come about.
Yeah, we had smartphones though. So.
And so Cassandra, what was your first influencer campaign that you did for a brand, and how did that come about? Did they reach out? How did that all happen?
I don't know if I remember the first one, just because I was getting sent things, for so long. But more often than not, when I would post about a brand, like this just happened again, where I'll post about them organically, like Juice Beauty, and their team reached out and said, oh my God, like your alignment with sustainability and clean, and invited me to their farm. And then we ended up doing a podcast, and I became like an official influencer. Like I became family to them. So, and nowadays that's kind of what I feel like everyone's doing. You do need to do that, and you can reach out to them, but if it's like a mass email, like people can read right through it, just like they can when you get a spam email. If it's not to that specific company and that person, like it's really not going to work, like especially with all the big brands. So because I've done that, and we've also done that with Lashfinder, like it took us a really long time to like find lash wearers and makeup lovers and artists, and like we had to try so many different things to make because there's a lot of lash wearers, but they might not need the tool like other people. So I don't know, it's a learning experience. I'm sure you can agree.
Well, I agree, and I also think that if a brand is reaching out directly because they know somebody has an affinity and a love for the brand, and they connect because they saw somebody posting on the feed, that's when I've always got the best responses. And so like years ago, and this is again back at Toronto, so this is early days of influencer, when it wasn't so prevalent and there weren't all these networks and ways to do it, we were launching this crazy bacon flavor when bacon was kind of having its first moment, and it was for an April Fool's stunt. And so we had found all these bacon people who just were out there posting about bacon. And so it was like we reached out direct, and it was my team, it was like scrappy. I mean, we're this like small company, and so we're like, okay, here are the 25 people we think talk about bacon the most in social media. So we're gonna reach out and tell them what we're doing and tell them about this crazy stunt and what it tastes like, and we're gonna see if they wanna help design the product. And they then became like huge fans of the brand, some of them. Not only did they post about the stunt, but that's how you like build that relationship. Instead of just, oh, my agency reached out, or somebody like says, oh, I like your fan base, I want to connect with you. I think it's much more natural and organic if you actually already like the brand. It works out much better.
So Cassandra, you mentioned you get a lot of products. So how do you decide who you want to work with? What kind of research are you doing about the brand before you decide to work with them? Are there tools for that, or how do you go about that?
So now that I'm way more niche because of my allergies and who is my audience is, like it is very niche with sustainability and clean. So EWG is a huge thing. Fair trade certified, like there are places that you can go. Used to be there's another app that you could use. I think that they were bought out by someone else, but EWG is kind of like the place.
Sorry, what is EWG?
Environmental Working Group.
Okay.
They're .org, and it has all of the clean listed products on there that pass the EU standards and that sort of thing. But I also use like Beauty Counter as kind of a starting point because they have the never list of the 1,500 ingredients, which is more than the EU, which is 1,400, and then the US only has about 30 or so. So most of the things in stores and even in people just don't know that it can cause all these health issues. And so. Yeah, so for me now, it's like a no-brainer. If someone tries sending me something that's not, I'm like, I will send it back, or I'll be like, this is not, I can't even use this personally. So that's happened with fragrance, for example. So, but there are clean fragrance brands. Clean Reserve is amazing. So like we're talking to them.
Right.
So now it's a little bit more, but before, when I was just a small influence, just a regular person, influencing to my friends, because it is true, it's like your friends and family go to you because you're the expert that they know.
Right.
I was literally just posting about my stuff in my Ipsy box, and then the brands would reach out to me and say, we love this post, like we love your look, or this or that. And then it would turn into something more, and it would be a paid exchange for a certain amount of time and that sort of thing.
And speaking of posting, did you start with one particular platform or medium, or was it email before?
Yeah, like I said, it was MySpace, I believe, and then
it was MySpace.
Yeah, and then Instagram and YouTube, and then Facebook. They're kind of competing, Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
But there's a different market on there. Like all my older buyers and people are on Facebook. My grandma, my mom. But everyone on Instagram is pretty young. Like my own fiance doesn't. He's like 5 years old, and he's like, I'm not going on Instagram. I'm like, they're crazy. So I feel like it is a little bit younger, but everybody has it. I feel like everybody has it, even if it's just to see what other people are doing. Like you have like 2 pictures, and you just like look. You just scroll. You don't even like. You're just scrolling, but you're still making an impact on those followers.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So Julie, there's a big conversation right now on paid versus organic content.
Yes.
And I'm curious your take on that. I was at a beauty conference recently, and something I heard was as paid goes up, authenticity goes down. So I'm curious, like, as a brand marketer, what is there a balance there between how you leverage paid versus organic content? So for people who are familiar, not familiar, paid is something where you actually pay the influencer to generate content, and you're now required by law to actually tag the content as sponsored or paid, and you'll see that on Instagram. And organic is something where you on your own, you created content, posted it on YouTube, and it went viral, or it was then after it was leveraged by the brand for promotion and more. So that's the difference between paid and organic. So yeah, please.
I think it's going to have a big impact on the industry, because I feel like in beauty, at Rodan and Fields and watching all the influencers and everything unfolding, and now it's all about talking your media strategy, just like you talked about anything else, right? So it's like micro and macro and celebrity and how many of each and how much reach. And I mean, that's how brands are talking, if they're smart, about influencers, and it's a part of the marketing mix. And I feel like when you get to that level of saturation, it doesn't then have the reason that consumers went to it in the first place, which is all that authenticity. So I've kind of been feeling ever since they made that change, which was, we started talking about it hour and a half like last year. I feel like you're starting to see more and more people follow the regulations. The biggest problem right now is that a lot of brands are doing paid programs and that people aren't tagging it as paid. So what you're seeing is a lot of inconsistency in who's following the rules and who isn't following the rules. But if and when the FTC cracks down, and if and when it starts to become more prevalent, I think consumers are going to actually walk away from it. And so my feeling is there's going to be a next thing. So influencers are working right now, and we're in kind of a moment where I think they're big and they have scale and they have reach. And then as marketers, you always have to be like, okay, what's going to come next? Because I'm just waiting, because I feel like I've been hearing about this and doing it for a while, and there is going to be a next. But in some ways, there's a lot of brands who've never tried influencers. It was mostly small brands at the beginning. And so, but I think we're kind of hitting that, like, it's like the peak of the housing market. I feel like we're up at the top. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like we're kind of up at the top, and I'm sort of wondering and looking around, kind of going, what's going to be the next thing of how consumers find that authentic content that they're looking for that doesn't feel like they're being sold to.
Right. And to a certain degree, reviews are that.
Exactly.
Right.
Reviews,
But those are
YouTube
even
videos.
paid.
A lot of
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
And people don't realize
Amazon,
they're paid either.
Yeah, that's true, and that's
And
because
Amazon offers that to you. When we got on Amazon, that was the first email we got. It was like, do you want to pay for a bunch of reviews? And we're like, absolutely not. Like, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So Julie, for a brand like Shackley, were you working with influencers before you joined the company, or is this something very new to the company, and how are you approaching that?
It's something new. So to give background with Shackley, so Shackley's in the direct selling business, which is the ultimate original influencer program. So direct selling is essentially, you talk to your friend, you start taking these vitamins, you start taking the protein shakes, you look amazing, you're starting to feel great, or you lost some weight or whatever. You tell your mother, you tell your girlfriend, or you had an event, or you had people over, and that's how everybody, it's like Tupperware parties. That's how everybody did influence and direct selling in the olden days, right? Like not so long ago. And so, and they still do. There's still Pampered Chef events and all those kinds of things. And Stella and Dot and all that. I mean, there's still like kind of more party businesses, or you hear about it from a friend. Exactly. So I feel like the interesting thing in today's world is to kind of look at it and say, in that model, you became an influencer just by talking to your friends and doing these events and doing things more in person. But now that everybody's moved to, they don't have time and they're doing everything in mobile and social, the question that we've had at Shackley is it worth growing leaders and teaching them social media and teaching them how to take what works between them and 5 of their friends and scaling it? Or should we go to people like you who already know how to post and already have an audience and are super savvy to social media and say, if they love our products and are authentically interested, do they want to build a business? And so we're in an interesting place testing to kind of say, if you're a legacy direct selling business that doesn't have this young, modern, hip field that knows how to do all this stuff, are we better to like cultivate them and train them, which we've been doing for the last few years, and trying to teach people like how to do this stuff? Are we better to find people who already know how to do it, make them, have them try our brand and love our brand and see, because there's a lot of them that want an entrepreneurial opportunity, and let them go grow with us. So that's kind of what we're testing and playing with influencers.
Got it. And Cassandra, have you had an influencer campaign or a relationship with a brand go bad or it didn't work out? And I'm curious what happened and why. It was such a
so when we did a pre-launch where we sent out like 1,000 tools to the people that we had found over those couple months, and we distributed them all over US, Canada, and Mexico, and like less than 10% actually came through with like the agreement that we had of like doing a post. And our biggest posts to date are the ones where someone paid full price for our product on our website. It changed their life, and they literally made videos about it, and they gave us the permission to use it. The most recent is like literally a drunk guy in Vegas who uses the tool for the first time, and like, that post I think got like 500,000 views in the last week, because it was like, it's just so funny, that he was not paid to do that. And it was like, it was like they were in a hotel room, they were all partying, and he used it, and they all thought it was going to be a disaster, and it actually worked. He used the product, and he didn't know how to. So it's kind of like, if he can do it, you can. And then our sales went up. So we didn't actually need the influencers that we thought we needed with the professional makeup artists, like I was telling you earlier. Like, they are comfortable using the tweezers and using their fingers, and they're professionals at doing that. They don't actually need our tool. So we've been learning as we've been going along. So. And then as an influencer, have you had a relationship with a brand that went bad, like where you were creating content and things didn't happen, or you didn't get the right? I'm on a lot of different apps. There's a lot of different ones. There's Tribe, there's Rep, and I've started working with a brand. And when I do, I become very serious, like posting for them, and then. One actually, like someone else broke into their Instagram and they changed it, and then they got rid of the company, but I didn't know, so I was still posting and tagging them, and it went from like a beauty brand to an emo account, so people were like, what is this? So that happened, but I mean, that's very rare and happened like once, so. But usually it's pretty good, and usually contracts are in place and things, but I have noticed that, when I am being paid, there is that people will click away before they go and buy whatever I'm telling them to swipe up for. So I feel like they can tell if it's authentic. So I prefer when it's that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And so what I want to do now is I want to open up the floor to Q&A from the audience as well, so we can take questions and so please go ahead.
So it seems like Vyrill, and then I've been looking into this content for a long time now, but then it seems like it's a general consensus that if an influencer is being sponsored by a specific company, it loses its authenticity. It loses its value as a review video. But then in Korea, there's a very famous YouTuber who gets sponsored by all these tech companies, but he makes very honest reviews. He talks crap when it's necessary, and he actually praises the product if it is really good. So that creates like a trust between the viewers and the YouTuber himself, and that's, I believe, a method for him to build his trust amongst the companies as well. But then how's that situated in the States or like anywhere else in the world.
But I think what you're talking about is what makes the best content, right? And so
Right.
somebody could be talking about multiple brands, the same way that I could like 2 different gyms and I could like 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 brands of clothing and how many shoes do I have. So you're gonna say a lot of good things about a lot of brands, but if they're brands that you really like and you're really honest about it, what that says to me is that somebody could be repping brands and still be really credible as long as they're doing it in a way that doesn't feel like that they're being authentically them and being real in their review. Does that make sense? Like that they're really
Right.
sharing what they really think versus something that just sounds phony.
But in that case, we don't have to worry about sponsored content, do we? Like,
Well, isn't he sponsored?
Well, he is. I mean, technically, he
He's
has
sponsored.
to. He has
He
to
has to
label. He has to
disclose.
disclose.
right,
that
right,
it's
he does.
sponsored.
And then, for example,
Yeah.
if all reviewers or all influencers, let's say if they all become sponsored by companies, and then if they label that they're
Yeah.
sponsored, like, wouldn't that also create a new trend in terms of, trust amongst viewers and influencers?
I feel like people
and
already do
marketers?
that.
Yeah.
And that is just, it's the name of the influencer on the line.
Mhm.
If you say that something is really great and everyone goes and tries it and says it's not great, that's your name. So you might get a lot of different products. I know I do, and like I said, they won't come on my podcast. I won't post about them. Today, actually, I got a glue, lashes and I posted, and I'm hoping that the company will be like, oh, that has to be a bad batch, because I hope, but sometimes, I mean, and beauty people are sensitive. Like if I say I don't like something, like you're saying, I have hate comments. But the thing is, I'm like, this glue is goopy. It doesn't work. I try every glue that comes out because I'm posting about the brands. I don't feel like there's a competition mindset because I have a lash brand. But I posted about it and I put it in my story and I was like, this glue sucks. I just paid $10 for this. What the heck? And I threw it in the trash.
Yeah.
So hopefully, they'll reach out. But I mean, yes, there is that authenticity. But I would never like rep their brand, and especially if someone saw that and was like, they're paying you now for that. They would know that it's fake. So. I mean, you will lose tens of thousands of followers, and Laura Lee and lots of big beauty influencers have talked about that, where they're repping a brand and it doesn't make sense, and your fans and your family and friends know if you're being authentic. So.
Other questions? Yes, please go ahead.
So, as a brand marketer,
Mhm.
would you send a product to someone that you know has both opinions and they do voice like both sides, negative and positive?
So I personally will. I don't know that
Yeah.
I'm only going to speak for me. I can't speak for all brand marketers, but I actually think it's better to have a balanced set of reviews out there, and I also think that you have people who are going to love you and people that are going to hate. Like it's just like with anything, like personality. It's better to have some people who truly love you and are uber fans than it is to have like be vanilla in the middle. So I'd rather have the balance of reviews myself.
Yeah, and then as like a product owner, would you, as an influencer as well, badmouth a product when you think it is really bad?
Well, yeah. So
She said yes earlier.
I have, and it's caused issues, but I have to sometimes say when I really don't like something.
Yeah.
It's just like giving advice to a friend because people will ask me. But I avoid that by saying these are my top 10 favorite foundations.
Yeah.
This is my top favorite of the month, rather than saying these brands suck. I'll just highlight the ones that I love, and everyone knows that I try everything. I'm a clean beauty reviewer. I'm a judge this year, so I'm getting sent hundreds of products, of samples, and I'll only talk about the good ones. I don't need to. It goes without saying the ones that I didn't like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting on YouTube you find the top 10 lists.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's a way of ranking or sorting. I guess.
It's very
and
popular.
when you receive a lot of products.
And that's when all the brands will repost that as well. That they're.
And speaking of which, what kind of content do you generally create? Reviews, unboxing, like what content do you focus on?
Yeah, so I do I actually have like a press kit that I send out, and they can choose if they want it to be an advertisement on the podcast, if they want a podcast episode, if they want a unboxing, if they want an unboxing and a review, if they just want me swatching, there's a lot of different things that you could do in beauty. So it's a live. Instagram live is different than a Facebook live and different from just a regular post without video. We all know video is being pushed right now, so it costs a little bit more for video, and it's more of your time and it's more preparation. So it depends, and I think that most influencers do that now. They give a variety of things that they can offer.
And Julie, from your point of view, are you looking at formats? Is video better than images than text? Like, is there a particular?
I go for anything that's moving, just as a preference.
Okay, so video.
Video or animated GIFs or unboxing, like anything that's got movement because it is up in the feed. But you don't want all your posts to be that way because you've got to have a mix of content. So it's got to be that somebody's authentically sharing. So if they want to say, like, this is what I heard today, or this is what I did. So I like them to have a variety in their feed when they talk about us.
Got it. Questions? Yes.
So you mentioned that you're testing both the traditional with the traditional market where you're getting organic and you're also using influencers, and you guys are trying to gather data at the moment. Do you, since we're talking about formats, do you ever reach out to people who are doing, or do you ever personally go out to people and try to get them to do something completely different? Because obviously, doing stuff like the top 10 and all that stuff, that's what everyone's doing. It works. But do you take those big risks where you're just here's a budget, we like your type of content, kind of just create something with it?
I've done that in the past. Right now, what I've been doing is more trying to teach people what are all the different ways. They're either somebody like you as a professional who already knows what to post, and you say, hey, go for it, and here's what I want you to, here's my key messages kind of thing, but here's what's great about these products, go try them, but you should talk about what's relevant for you. But then on the folks that I'm trying to teach how to post, it's more giving them examples and training and lots of here's how you do it, and here's the photography, and here's how you take the pictures, and here's how you build your personal brand, essentially. It's like teaching people how to use social media. So we're doing both, and they're very different.
And I think to that point, does the resolution of the video matter? Authenticity is also tied to sometimes the video is not perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
And is that okay?
I think it's completely fine, and I have to say that I've evolved. So if you had talked to me even 4 years ago, I remember we had this huge debate at Rodan & Fields because I was tasked with elevating the brand and making it more elevated, and you wanted to have proud to be on your counter, and how do you have this brand that costs $300 for a system and have these images that are on homegrown cameras and iPhones, and so what should a modern beauty brand do? And I've really come around to UGC, user generated content, and I've come around to authentic content combined with branded content, because I still think a brand needs to have a look and feel and tone and personality and things that make it why do you want to be on the Chanel feed or the BMW feed or whatever it is you want to follow this really aspirational brand. But then at the same time, when you see people in their real life having something come out of their bag or their purse spilling out, or it's them in their own bathroom, or it's their shelfie, that feels really real and it's really fun. So I think a brand needs a mix of both. And I've let go of control of my brand. I completely had to let go 3 or 4 years ago.
And thanks to Apple 11 today. So I think the resolution and the cameras are getting better.
Yeah,
so I think that actually solves that.
There we go.
There we go. I mean, Apple 11 is now all about night mode. So even in darkness,
it's dark light, right?
Yeah,
That's
you can make videos.
Good, I need that.
So I think the point being is just with smartphones, I think that resolutions are getting better. So I do think that content going forward will be visible and much better than it was probably 10 years ago.
Well, and there's also a lot of great companies that are not just looking through videos like yours, but are also helping you find the UGC that's out there so that you can see it as a brand, and then you can go and make a relationship and connect with the influencer. And I think that works really well. And then it helps you find all the content online, because you could search all the hashtags of people referencing you and pull it all in to your brand, and then you can even pull it into your website, which makes it much easier as a marketer than when you were trying to find it on your own.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, you said you have a press kit, I can do swatches or this, or it's different for Instagram Live versus that. How does the negotiation process work? Do they offer you a price point, or do you offer them?
Oh no, I have
point?
packages, and so it depends, like I said, on exactly what it is. But for example, Vanish got in touch with us. They have a huge, I don't know, 1 million or something, and they do acne and skincare, but it's clean. But they wanted to boost their episode on our Instagram and our podcast, so they wanted to sponsor a future podcast. So that's an option that we offer. And so, for example, they got to choose between a beginning of the podcast, $300, like right now, based on our listeners, $500 for like a middle of the episode, because once you start driving, you're not gonna like fast forward through a commercial, and then at the end it's a little bit lower. So they got to choose which advertising space they wanted and how long that they boosted the post on Instagrams. For instance, it's $50 a day, but they wanted to boost it for 2 weeks, right? From a week before the episode launched and a week after. So then they paid us based off that, and then we had our marketing team.
What's boost mean? Just
paid on Instagram so that it goes as a sponsored post. They wanted their episode to be featured on our Instagram.
Okay.
Through our podcast. So it's different for every brand, but we do custom
you would
package.
post on it, or that you would actually promote
So
that
their
post
face,
on
their
yours?
brand on the post where I'm holding their product
Yeah.
and talking about the podcast. So it was just pushed out as like a sponsored. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
but
like a promo for a TV show.
Yeah.
When you're watching TV and they show you the next one, it's that idea, but you're doing it. It's kind of what they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like pay promotions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's bumped to all of our.
Is there ever a case where they, maybe not for podcasts, but just for Instagram, offer you a price? Like when people send you products, do they kind of say like, we're willing to pay X?
Yeah, Maybelline did that. They're like, we want one post with these 2 hashtags. We'll give you $300. And it was like, we're sending you the mascara. We do it between these two dates, like a 2-week period, anytime. And so I built it into my feed, and I did it, and it was a very simple thing. I didn't go back and say, oh no, I want this much. I think they were basing it off of, because you can look at how much engagement a person has. It's not really based on their followers anymore. Yeah. So they went and looked at my account and gave me probably the rate that they would based on my following.
Have you ever counter offered?
I've built packages, like I said, for brands that approach and say, hey, we have this and we were really trying to push this new product. Can you do a special on this? And then we do that. But more often than not, they just pick a package or they offer me something, and it's just pretty easy. There's not a lot of back and forth, because I'm honored if someone's going to offer me in the first place. I'm not like a Kim K where I'm like, oh, you're 6 months out, I think I'm still small enough where I'm like, sure, totally, like, I really love your product and I would love to do that. But I have done a lot of like denial where I'm like, oh no, I'm really sorry, I'm not going to do that right now. Yeah.
Do you collaborate with other influencers?
So our new lash line is another local Bay Area business, Stargirl Cosmetics. She's 18.
Okay.
She is, she actually worked with us through the Nova program. I don't know if you guys know it.
No,
but
actually, can you share
it's like
that?
they pay her to be an intern for my company. So they found us as a local beauty startup. I'm like one of the only ones in Palo Alto. And so she came to work for us over the summer, and she was launching a lash line, and we're like, lash binder, here you go, let's do something together. So we went in on halves on an exclusive collection that is, and all the names are very inspiring women empowerment, like CEO, like really fun names in these different styles. And we ran a Kickstarter around it, so we all got to experience that together for the first time, and raise the funds for it, but get the word out and do a lot of the pre-selling on there. And we let 2 people name their own lashes. That was one of the tiers. Right. So that was really fun. But our whole, since the very beginning, our brand has been about community over competition and highlighting other women founders. We were working with iNemo out of the gate. They sponsored us to go to Bottle Rock, which, if you know, as a brand, it's very expensive to go and have a booth there for 3 days with 100,000 people. So we did that right out of the gate, and it's always worked for us. We partner with other lash brands, whether they have a glue or lashes or other sort of eye products, and we've created a lot through our content too, like through my own, because I have my own Instagram, right? So I will partner with an eye color that I think will be really pretty, and then that brand will reach out and be like, oh my god, like, let's work together more. So we're getting that a lot.
Got it. Other questions? Yes.
What about metrics? Like, do you just look at sales, or do you have sort of obligations as an influencer when you've got a post that needs to be?
Do you mean on the brand side, or do you?
Yeah, actually both.
No, I think
both sides.
both,
Actually
yeah.
both. That's KPIs essentially. How do you ROI? What's ROI for?
It's hard because it depends like what you're doing with your campaign, right? So you can look at it and say, how many impressions did I get, and how many clicks or how much conversion, but then ultimately it's like, did you get conversion? So like right now we're running, and I was talking about this program, so we've just launched a program called the Shackley Prove It Challenge, and it's a 30-day health challenge to feel amazing and to kind of reset your system. So if your goal is like better sleep or to lose weight or just to get into healthier habits, we say, hey, give us 30 days. We promise, and we've done clinical data on it. I mean, and so somebody goes in, they do a 7-day cleanse with our products to support, and then they convert over after that, and they get their full nutrition with a protein shake, and they take a vitamin strip of like different vitamins. So it just really gets you like full complete nutrition. And so we've been looking at not just how many impressions does that campaign garner, but like who is actually getting conversion to sales. And I mean, we have someone who's been doing it for a month who we never would have expected. He just personally got really into it. You would not look at his feed and his content and think that he would be like our biggest influencer. And it's like he converted 26 of his friends to buy this product in a month. And I mean,
so was it videos or something they posted?
He did. I mean, everything. I mean, it was like posts, it was unboxing, it was it's stories, it's everything. But it's just, it's their life and it's their journey, and they're sharing like, I did this and I made a goal, and they joined our community and they're like part of the challenge. And then their friends want to join the challenge with them, like anybody, you know, like, hey, I'm doing this, will you do it with me? So I don't think you ever know which things are going to get you the best metrics. But typically, I've looked at sales conversion. That's the most common, or at retail, I could look at coupon conversion if I gave out an offer code, or you can look at the offer and how it performs on your website, and I usually look at those.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say. We have codes we make for every single event, every single collaboration, every box, and so we can track everything that way, and that's what we look at, but we look at numbers every single day because it is important and we do want to know what's happening. But I think, you know, some of the codes that we gave out 3 months ago are just now coming in because it was the brand awareness, and a lot of people say, oh, I saw you at this event and that event and this, and I'm finally, you know, taking that plunge because they need to see, I think people need to see something, like 20 times or something beforehand, and without a publicist, like we're doing all of this, and so they just, you know, a lot of them are like, I don't know how you're popping up on my Google and my Facebook, my Instagram, or like, because we do a couple of the little paid posts and then they follow you around. So we did kind of need to do those a little bit with Lashbinder. So it was it's a total learning experience for me to see how all that works. But yes, like numbers are important, and we see that.
Other questions, comments?
So with Shackley, I'm very interested with that because obviously they weren't doing influencers in this sense where it's on social. How would you try to get someone or another company who's in that same mindset? They're not using video, they're not using content, and how did you convince Shackley to kind of like make that big jump?
Well, I think I was fortunate in that Shackley was already seeing that what the successful companies in the industry were doing was having these like incredibly, like they were looking at Radiant Fields and they were looking at all these other brands and saying, what we're doing, what's working in this space is influencers, and we have no clue how to do it. So to their credit, it's like, okay, we don't know how to do it, so let's bring in some people. So they hired someone in who started our, you know, the social team that's under me to help work on the content itself. And so I look at it like you've got to look at what kind of content do you create for your brand, and how do you train people on like what content should be in social? You've got to help with like calendars and ideas and things to teach people like how to be an influencer. Or are you asking more, how do you convince your management?
Because it sounds right now like you guys, you know it works, but the hardest thing in marketing period is always like figuring out, okay, so which one of the things was the reason? Obviously it's a process where someone needs to come through period, and eventually it might take 3 months, but they will get to that conversion point. How do you kind of convince them that I know using influencers online will work?
Well, fortunately, I'm lucky because I was doing it before, and I have the credibility, and then we have a new person in sales and some other folks who know that this works in our channel and know how to do it. But now what you've got to do is like test and learn your way to like, okay, well, what if we try celebrities? What if we try micro? What if we try a network? What if we do it this way? What if we do it by just talking to our friends and like home growing, you know, kind of mommy bloggers or whatever? Like, what's going to be the best way, and how do we build the infrastructure to do it at scale? So I was fortunate in that regard that I didn't have to convince anybody like you should be doing influencers. I mean, I feel like if you're listening to anything in marketing the last 5 years, you would know that you should be looking at influencers.
And so who's on your team that's dealing with this? Is it someone in the social team, analytics team? Because there's 3 different, when I think of influencer marketing, there is the social team, there is the analytics team who's tracking all the data around the consumer, around omnichannel. And then there is the sorry, I just lost my train of thought for a second.
Well, you've got who creates the ideas for
Yeah,
the
and
content,
then finally,
right?
yes, content
like
marketing.
the,
And
like
then,
the
sorry,
content.
sorry,
Yeah,
content
that's
marketing.
probably. I'm guessing that's
Content
what your other
marketing.
one
Yeah,
was.
I was just thinking.
So in the content side, it's me and the brand team, and
Okay.
then we're working. Then we've got our internal social team. Even your digital team gets involved because you have to have trackers on your site. Your finance team has to get involved to figure out like how do these people get paid,
Yeah.
right? And then I have an agency partner
Got
who's
it.
here who's helping me do some of the analytics and get this set up.
Got it.
Does the money only get delivered once they publish it?
It depends. If they're, if you're signing a contract with somebody and saying like, I want you to post, we would sign if we're doing a pay-to-play program, then somebody might be signing up for, okay, I'm gonna do this many Instagrams and this many lives and this many Facebooks and whatever over this window for this campaign, and they sign on to my campaign, and we negotiate with them either individually or through a network, depending on, or through their publicist, or, I mean, there's a million different ways you negotiate with people, and then they will get paid. They have to show proof, and they have to show you the post to make sure they're on brand.
Right. Okay, so there's never a case where they might get a deposit, like say I have to like buy some equipment for the,
It's usually the product.
No, they get the product to help, you know,
And that's like the
sometimes you have to
deposit.
try the product and use it for a while before, I mean, you negotiate, you sign, but then you've got to use the product and get the results before
Okay.
you can actually go post and say it's working, so.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll take this as a last question, and then
More wine.
it's almost more wine, and we'll be around, so you can network as well after.
Well,
So let's
maybe
do
mine's
this
a
and I
good
have
last
one
one
last.
because it's about the future. So
Oh, okay.
what I like about influencers is that they are policed by their followers in a sense, whereas this ad model that we all are stuck with, we don't get to choose. You know, all sorts of privacy invasion happens, and so people are reacting against that, and I think that's helped contribute to the rise of influencers because it seems more authentic. But you know, what are the possible ways things could go wrong in 5 years? I mean, what are the pressures? Are you seeing any pressures of, you know, too many people trying to rush in, or people losing, you know? I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
You go first, because I have thoughts too.
I don't know. I just, gosh, like the whole Snapchat thing, like people keep telling us to use it. I don't know. I feel like something either is going to, it's going to be a new platform, but we're not going to know exactly what it is. But I just know that things change so much that there's no such thing as a 5-year plan anymore. And it's really hard to, everything's changing by the day, and the news and the government and like everything that's going on. And like people's minds are constantly like all over. So I don't know. I think the challenge is just to stay up to date and stay trendy with whatever your audience is, and make sure you're listening to them, because things can change fast. I don't know exactly.
No, I would agree. I also think that as more people keep rushing in and it gets bigger and more populated, coupled with the new regulations, I think it's going to become increasingly apparent to consumers that it's not really truly authentic, you know, content. And so there could be a backlash against it, or it also could be that there's a rise of other vehicles and new things. Because if you're not keeping track of like algorithms and what's out there, and it's like every day I feel like there's some new rule or some new whatever. And if you're not constantly like, okay, now I got to change my content this way, it's not going to be in the feed, or now it's not about likes, it's about this. So you've got to be really on the cusp, and something could come up that is the new Instagram or the new whatever, and then there's a new way to engage, and that could create like a whole new thing. But ultimately what I truly believe is that people like to connect with people, and they believe from people they trust. So whether those are digital connections because they built an audience, or it's their live friends or whatever, people have been sharing, like friends and family, like how word of mouth has always been the most effective advertising. So whatever it's going to be, it's going to be a word of mouth vehicle, because that's essentially what influencers are. Just a modern word of mouth vehicle.
So last question for me, which is if you had a wish list, and I asked you a question, I wish, if you could answer, I wish I had fill in the blinds. What would you? There's any challenges that come to your mind,
so
and you
easy.
wish there was this that would really help me. What is your wish list? And as an influencer, and what is your wish list as a marketer? So let's start with you.
On the influencer side, I mean, I was drawn to your company because of being able to find brands easier, and them being able to find me easier because we're in that similar space, in the small space. And then on the brand side, I would just say we're just growing at a fast pace, and we need all of this different help. And so that would be the thing on that side, is just, people are hard to find, good people, and, they're all relationships. So we're trying right now to build out our team to more than 3 people. So there's that part,
and
for
your
me-
wish list as a marketeer?
Well, for me right now, I've got my big new business challenge of figuring out like how do we use influencers and crack the code on this business. So yes, I wish I could leapfrog all the hard work that it takes to test and try and scale a new business idea, but we've got like a 6 to 12 month runway of just doing it. I wish I could just skip to the future and know that it was all working, but you've got to put the time in and the work. So I feel like that's the way it is.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and we have a small gift, my team is, so let's give a big round of applause. For bringing the small.
Is it chocolate from Belgium?
Oh, I don't know. So, is champagne? Is that good?
We pop it here.
Thank you.